Hey party people, this is Jeremy for MVM, and today I'm here with a Kickstarter preview of Gorgasali Battle Royale. This is a 2 to 10 player game. Yeah, it's a lot, but this is Battle Royale, so you're going to have an opportunity to have a mass amount of people, right? So you are representing the 10 different kingdoms that are trying to fight basically for the crown in a sense, and they all have their own abilities, and these are supposed to be their best warriors, right? So you are in this big map, and it has 72 chests across this map, different terrains, things like that, and you are trying to gather as much gear as possible from these huge randomized decks, and they're going to have different kind of weapons, defensive items, kind of spell-like stuff, all kinds of things that you want to kind of equip yourself with, constantly going through this stuff in order to start taking people out along the way. Trying to whittle these people down, take them out, but then there's also the pressure of the board closing in on you, and as rounds pass, they will kind of slowly close these zones on you. And if you play a game like Apex Legends in a video game, that's exactly what happens. Like, you close to a certain point and you get damaged if you're outside of it. We're going to show you how that stuff works today. I'm going to give you a little taste of how this game plays. Let's go ahead and get right to it, party people. This is Gorgasali Battle Royale. Let's get to the boards. Let's go through a quick setup here for Gorgasali, which is very easy to set up. You have your big map here, and you want to lay it out a specific way according to player count. The more players you add, you're going to have to space your players out because the boards are big, the player boards are big, and so is the board. And that's because it's a battle royale. So you're going to have these black chest cubes here. These are treasure chest cubes. There are 72 slots across the board. I believe it's 72, and you're going to put one of those black cubes on each one of those spots. This is going to give you an opportunity to grab as many cards as you can from the support deck and also the weapons deck, and you want to make sure you shuffle these really well so that you can get the best opportunity to get through all those kind of cheapy ones and to get to the legendary ones at the end there. You want to put things in your favor as much as possible, right? So you're going to do that. You're going to put all the other stuff aside, like your defensive things, your little abilities, different stuff that you'll see throughout the game. You want to make sure those are stacked by 2s and 1s because it's going to change during the round. So you want to make sure you have those separated. Now, you're also going to be paying attention to the sectors because everybody's going to roll a d20, and that's going to decide where you start at around the borders of the board. So you want to do that, make sure you have that, and now you're going to pick your characters because you got to have characters to fight it out. And these are all going to be very interesting. You're all going to start with a health of 100, and I'm just going to show you these as I talk about them. They're all going to start with a health of 100. They're all going to have a treasure chest. Now, as you may notice, they all have their own abilities, and I'll be honest with you, I'm only going to inject my opinion here. This has some outstanding art. These boards are huge and they are beautiful. Some of these characters have passive skills, and some of them have kind of a timer-like skill to them. So what they do is this marker right here is placed at the start right here, and it slowly, as the rounds go, will move across, and then eventually it will hit active, and then you can activate the abilities. So what are some of those abilities while we're talking? There's some of these are going to be elemental, so like an ice, kind of like an ice field, healing, fire if you're next to someone, but other ones are going to be ranged attacks, telekinesis and pulling people towards you, switching spots with you, kind of like a and they kind of phase and switch with you, all this kind of stuff. So there's somebody's like immune to special abilities as a whole. So there's a lot of things, but generally, let's go ahead and go to the play cards, the actual player boards. You're going to have 2 weapons. You're going to have defensive and throwable weapons. You're also going to have a whole bunch of consumables. Those are things that you can basically use to heal, repack your ammo, different types of stuff like that. And then you also have your armor, because there is armor in this game. And then you have some slots, some extra slots for stuff to carry. Those will automatically fill for things that you have empty at the end of your turn. You also have a little layout of your ability and what it does right here. So there's very little there's very little need to go back in the rule book, honestly. And then you're going to have one treasure chest. That treasure chest will go right here. It will be used at any point during the game. You can only have one. If you get another one, you only have room for one. You also have a mini for your character. Okay, and I'll show you a couple pictures of those. Mine are a little chipped, I'm sorry, so I won't go too hard with that. But you also have a banner that will match your character in the top right corner. You want to make sure you have that as well. So yeah, as you can see, these characters are all very different. Of course, they represent 10 different kingdoms. You will also roll a d6 that will determine who's going to go first. Whoever the first player is, they will get this round marker. This will kind of determine how the borders, the zones close in, when the zones close in. So there you go. That's all set up. Make sure you got everything laid out. Make sure everybody has 100 health because they're going to need it. Let's get to how this game actually plays. A game of Gorgasali is played over a certain amount of rounds, and the rounds basically keep going until someone wins, and players can die by not making it inside of the ring in time, which we're about to talk about, or they get killed by an opponent. Whoever survives wins the game. Now, like I said, a round is actually everybody goes once, and once they do, the rounds move forward until we get to here. Now, the board is actually broken up into these zones. They have a white ring around them, the outer zone being zone 1, then you 2, then 3, then 4, moving into the center where the great tree is in the middle. We'll talk about the great tree. But as that zone closes, the first zone, players will receive 5 damage for each square they can't make it inside of. So as you're moving in, if you can't make it in, you're going to receive 5 damage per. And then as we move past the 10th round, like so, you will now have zone 2 close. So now the map is getting real scrunchy, and you will lose 10 health per square. And then as we move to 15 plus, you'll be losing the 3rd zone, and now you'll be pretty much in the dead center there. Otherwise, you're going to lose 15 health per square. So as you can see, it's going to make it so it's just real bloody at the end, and you're only going to have like so much room to duck around. So now let's get to an actual player's turn. Players have cooldowns or they don't. So there's people who have passive abilities that basically are situational, and then you have yours who are that may have a cooldown, and you're going to move your little marker 1 pip over, 1 step over closer to the active, and when it's active you can use your ability, like a big old, big time ability there. Now, there are optional things that you can do on your turn, and that usually has to do with consumable usage. So these are the cards that you pick up along the way. They could be health-based, ammo-based, defensive-based, those types of things. You can just only use 1 during your turn. So you just got to pay attention to these rules as we go along. So the first part of your turn, you can use a health card or an ammo card. And ammo cards add to your dice pool. There's a lot of different cards in this game. I may not explain all of them. But the big part is your movement. So you're going to roll these movement dice. It's 2d6, and remember you're starting on wherever whatever sector you started on at the beginning of the game, rolling a d20 and starting there. But along the way, you're going to roll your dice, and that's going to represent the amount of movement you have. General concepts for movement: you have to move all the spaces that you have in pips, and you can't like go to somewhere where you went. Okay, so there's an option to kind of move around, and you can kind of move in kind of a bad direction. You can't move diagonally; it's only orthogonal movement. And you also have the option of not moving at all, probably because you're in combat range. All right, so or you just want to stay where you are. Maybe you want to heal. There are actually different types of terrain, so let's talk about that. There are mountains, there are forests, and there's water. So water is going to be the most difficult movement. It's going to cost you 3 movement. Mountains and forests are going to cost you 2 movement. And there are items that you can use, consumables that you can use, like boats and axes and climbing gear, that will make it very easy for you to move across these terrain. So that's another opportunity to use stuff. But you can also stop your movement by going to these treasure chests, these little black cubes that we talked about during setup, and picking those up. And that's how you're going to get all these cards I'm talking about along the way. You're going to be able to grab 2 support cards from the support deck and 1 weapon card. And this is where you're going to start to fill up your slots for consumables and weapons and defensive items and your gear so you can protect yourself, all that kind of stuff. And that's where that stuff comes from. Then you're going to move on to your main actions here, and you have your actions for defensive cards, so you can set up a defensive barrier. There's defensive trees, like a tree defense that takes away from people's rolls. You have one that's like a force field that negates half damage. You got like lightning as defense. You also have throwable items, so you have a throwable item you can use. These are not the consumable options. These are just cards that you have. You have a throwable item that you can throw, like a javelin that does massive damage. A lot of these items that you use that are throwable are massive. They even have like kind of like an EMP thing that disables people's weapons. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's throwable. It's really cool. And then you have this main action in the middle. And the main action is basically using your weapons. So let's talk about the weapons. And I should say one of the consumables is actually attaching something to that weapon to kind of do some buffs on it. But there are different types of weapons in the game. There is like a 6-shooter kind of thing. There's strikers, which are kind of like assault rifles. There's scouts, which are kind of like snipers. And then there's massive weapons where you got to get real close. Now, each one of those has their own dice pool. Some of them will have 2, 4, 5 dice, and they have a specific range. Some of them even tail off when you get to a specific range and you have to hit a certain number. But depending on the type of weapon, you will roll those dice and you will multiply it times whatever that item, that number says. There's also ones like the massive weapons. You just have to hit a certain number and then you will hit for that big damage. Now, there's also tiers of weapons, just kind of like any other shooter game where you're picking up all these weapons along the way. You are going to be able to find these ones that are more rare, and as you get up to the top with the legendaries, these are going to have some insane abilities that add maybe even more damage or heal or do all kinds of stuff. But that's something that's still available to you. But after you use your weapon, which is kind of interesting, you are going to flip it over and it has to be reloaded. So now it's not available to you until you take one of the other main actions on the next turn, which is reloading. And then lastly, you also have the reloading your, you do your backpack. So you have your backpack situation, you can manage things around, and like I said before, if you have any open slots, that stuff will go back in your backpack. That is the turn, but there are a wide range of abilities that you can use in this game. I could not go into all the cards that are available, but hopefully I gave you an overview of the turn. Let's go ahead and get to my final thoughts. Final thoughts here on Gorgasali Battle Royale. Now this is different. Because I've played like a video game version with fantasy stuff. This is not the same at all. This one has the same tension and that same kind of closing in on you type tension where you have to have that pressure, and something connected with me a little bit different in this. It's something about knowing that you got to gather all this stuff. So you're running around frantically gathering these treasure cubes, trying to find the right weapons to equip yourself to just let off these ridiculous turns where you're shooting like maybe one big heavy weapon, bam, and you hit that, and then you try to, that person's gonna go like running for the hills. Or you may set up a defensive wall and that person, can't get to you so that you can get free and run to safety. Or you can kind of move around the corner and blast them. There's a whole bunch of options that you have, and I think that's why there's also something cool about this, is that there's so many items in this game that you can dive into, and it has so many like a very overpowered feel, and everybody feels a little bit overpowered. And I'm not even going to go into all the abilities, but some of them are absolutely ridiculous, and they're offensive and defensive. So definitely a lot of variety. I get a feeling that if this game were to do well, it would be tournament based. There could be a ton of expansions just because it started so big, and I'll be honest with you, the prototype is a pretty decent prototype. You can kind of tell the artwork is closer to final and stuff like that. But this is definitely a prototype. And hopefully I'll kind of leave it there. Hopefully I gave you an idea how this game plays and helped you make an informed decision, because I can't tell you what to do with your money. I'd like to thank BGERA for sponsoring this video, and I would like to thank you for your time, party people, so much. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Feel free to like and subscribe. And once again, thank you for your time, party people. You have a wonderful day. Hope to see you next time on MVM.